Hello and welcome to Antique Dust. We are dusting down the delicious and delightful Hardacres. We are total fanboys. We have just watched episode 4, so it's all marvellous. Anyway, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Rob.
And together we're going to break down and dissect this delicious episode bit by bit. So, what did you think, Rob?
No pressure.
No pressure.
Well, it was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable.
And then...
It was marvellous. Join us next week.
So this episode, it was a little bit of it strayed away from what we were previously used to, which was sort of like a catalogue of errors, where sort of like social gaffes or polite society and all of that. And it was like full of pathos, and it was just, it was very, very lovely.
Yeah, so we had a bit more emotion.
A bit more emotion.
A bit of backstory kind of coming in there.
And it did actually have, Hardacres it has got a lot of comedy, and it could be a comedy of errors or language or behaviours, and it still had that running through it, but there was a more dramatic, and it was really calling at the emotions.
Definitely.
So in last week's episode, Joe had set up Fred sort of with the money on the safe because he felt intimidated by him, and we thought he was going to come clean about that, and he hasn't.
No.
Fred has been dispatched with a payoff, so that's an unresolved situation. The episode starts in the morning around the breakfast table with Harry writing a letter, has written a letter and being read out at the breakfast table. And it's sort of fast forwarded on a little bit with regards to, so he's established in school and he's sort of narrating his journey,
learning long words.
So I'm a bit disappointed we didn't have more Harry in this episode, because it just seems to have been dispatched on the back of a carriage. But hopefully he will be sort of, that's not the last we've seen of him.
He'll be back before the end of the series, I'm sure.
I'm very confident.
I'm confident.
There's got to be some clashes. So we have a little bit more with Mr. Lord and Lady Snooty, the Fitzherberts and Adela. And they're having a conversation with regards to Adela and this Lord Snooty,
another Lord Snooty,
who just seems to come out of central casting of, can you do really, really annoying posh boy that just talks down his nose in I'm
not saying a word.
A very way.
But
he plays it amazingly well.
Yes.
And he's talking about his horses and sort of is off to Argentina to sort of breed some sort of polo season or something. So it all seems very sort of hoity-toity. And Adela is completely, utterly bored out of her head.
Well, it doesn't seem very interesting, really. It does come across as being a bit dull. Yeah,
and she said all he talks about is horses and himself, and there's so he's sort of is seen off. But she said, we need to do a send off for you before you go, because she's desperate for him to ask for Adela's hand in marriage because it would be a suitable match. And Adela says, well, it's not very nice and it's boring. And she said, well, so that's what happened when I met your father. You only have to make the most of the conversation. You don't have to talk to them that much once you've married.
Which is pretty accurate, really.
Shush. So I think the comedy aspect on this is really with the Fitzherberts, and then we cut to the Hardacre with Hardacre Hall. Ma is serving tea in this ornate teapot,
which we've already had flagged up as being missing from
been missing from the china cabinet.
China cabinet, yes.
And she said, "Oh, I've been looking after sort of Bessie,
Brown
Bessie, the teapots," and she's pouring tea. So it's much better than the silver one. And then after she pours the tea, she's sort of with a wide sweeping gesture, sort of the teapot goes a flying.
Yes.
So Mary Hardacre is been invited by her ladies at lunch, the charitable thing, to go to see a talk.
Yes. Or listen to a talk.
In that there Leeds.
To a Theosophical Society.
Theosophical. What do Theosophicals talk about?
Oh, it's sort of kind of like a slightly peculiar, esoteric, new. These days, you would call it New Age, kind of religious-y sort of thing. But
we're all gonna hum. Be mindful.
It's not quite spiritualism, but it's not a million miles off it.
So, but Mary seems to have been included within.
Well, she got the thumbs up from the Duchess of Harrogate.
So that gives free rein for the other sort of ladies at lunch to sort of adopt her. So she's been invited and she's being picked up, and Ma invites herself along. But before she sort of invites herself along, she has another meet cute with Mr. Ward, and he asks for a card rematch, which she sort of there's a bit of a frisson. But he sees her, and I think sort of she likes because he'll talk to her, talk with her rather than at her.
Right.
So anyway, they go off to that there Leeds, and a Lady Fitzherbert is talking with sort of the other lady. T'other one, and the other one is talking about how marvellous her daughter's being married off to someone in uniform, and it'll all be jolly, and rubbing it in a little bit to Lady Fitzherbert, and she says, "Well, get your diaries ready; it's very imminent." And they are sort of cast a thing to Mary and Ma and say, "Is Liza courting?" And sort of, Ma's just so delicious. So she's very, very forward-thinking feminist, and it's just. And she says, "No, why would she want to get lumbered?"
Lumbered with a man.
So it's just. Then we have. So we cut to Joe, who's trying to do double entry bookkeeping, not very well, and Betsy. And she gives him some fruitcake to have with his tea.
Yes,
and she's obviously
come hither look.
She really does like him, and he's talking about he needs to settle down, get married, and have kids. You know, that's exactly what she wants.
Yeah,
but he's got the sort of hots for
Lady Adela.
So because they had a bit of a meet cute, and it was sort of because he's got money. And Lady Adela is coming a little bit come hithery with him.
Yeah, I don't think she's too opposed to the idea.
She's not opposed to the idea, but she knows that he's not of the caliber. He may have money.
A rough diamond.
He may have money, but he doesn't have class, which is hammered home in a little bit of a later in the episode. And then we have this really, really heart-wrenching moment because the charitable ladies at lunch say, "Oh, we're going to go and see this place that we sort of patronise, very
quite literally
patronise. It's the workhouse, and the looks. That's where this story just takes.
Yeah. So we have a bit of a pivot. Shall we say that, a pivot mid episode?
And this is where this whole the emotional roller coaster of this. It's beautiful. It's really well.
Yeah.
Well, but previously it could have been sort of like Carry On does period drama. Because the comic elements have been very to the forefront, but this really took over the heartstrings.
Yeah. So Ma and Mary step out of the carriage, and they know exactly
where they are.
And it's very familiar to them.
And it's the same, so that the person who manages it is the same person that was there when they were going in. And so they go in, and so the chap sort of semi-recognises Ma, but
doesn't quite, because she's
in a finery, and this is like the Hardacre herrings, the very well-renowned Hardacre herrings. And then they're wheeled in to see these children sing a song. And he's just so horrible and evil and just sort of really dictatorial towards these poor children that are
Yeah.
doing their best, that have been scrubbed up just to sing to the posh ladies that...
And the posh ladies are pretty awful.
Well, Lady Hardacre is particular. Well, you used to have a sort of...
Lady Fitzherbert.
Fitzherbert, yes. Sorry, I keep forgetting that name. I'm doing better with the names today. And here's... and you can see the emotion because sort of Mary was obviously in that.
Yeah. So we learn that Ma had placed Mary in the workhouse
Along with herself.
along with herself, but sort of on an in and out basis. So sometimes Ma was there, sometimes Ma wasn't there.
We have a
It's
bit of a...
reflection of their poverty, and then we can then call that back to an earlier episode when, and it begins to make sense when Mary says to Liza about how much better Liza's life has been than hers, and now we begin to understand that a bit more.
Yeah, but so we have a flashback in this episode with it's done sensitively, where Mary wakes up from a nightmare with her being taken in and a haircut, and basically her and Ma being split up. The Ma is being taken to the women's section, and the child stays in the child section, so the mother and child is split.
All
So-
terrible stuff. But
So it was all terrible, horrible sort of situations. But the thing is, with regards to the workhouse, you could come and go.
yeah, it's not a prison.
It wasn't a prison, but people did get institutionalized. So, but obviously it was horrible conditions.
Yeah,
So
deliberately
Mm.
horrible to discourage people malingering or
malingering on the state.
lingering in the
Yeah,
in the
so
workhouse.
and obviously sort of Daddy Hardacre and Mary have a conversation, and he says, "Well, you've got to speak to Ma about this because it's obviously brought up because he knows what history
Yeah.
obviously knows."
Yeah,
And then they have a bit of a shouting match on the lawn, which is just
playing croquet.
Well, Ma's playing croquet. Yeah, so it's just like I'm sure she's sort of she's got a good swing, but I don't think she's got the right sort of
Quite got the technique.
not quite got the technique. But obviously, Ma is very distraught about this.
Yeah,
And she doesn't want to bring it up because it becomes apparent that she was a single mother with no money.
exactly.
But
And destitute.
But Father Hardacre has basically said she would do anything for you, which I think she would.
True.
I think that is so true.
Yeah, and as I always say, we all do the best we can with the resources that we have.
Yeah, and I think that's. But it was like a real emotional element. Earlier in this episode, I know we're bouncing around a little bit. So Liza goes to speak to Adela and asks her sort of. There's a friendship there. She sort of apologizes for what she did with regards to sort of with the show and dance with
The body song.
with the sort of lady in the what was it, lady in
She
the
sits amongst the cabbages and peas.
the cabaret song, and asked her, how do I be a lady? And they have a sort of a common ground because Adela says, you don't know how hard it is being paraded like a poodle, and being graded on your acceptability in public surroundings. And Eliza said, well, you couldn't work in the docks either, but also admits that she really wouldn't want to do what they do. So we do love a montage. We didn't quite have a speedy montage, but we did have a sort of oh god, what was the My Fair Lady sort of makeover.
Yes, with a bit of a Pygmalion moment of Liza being
Sort of like
squeezed into her stays.
You've got to look like a corpse and
You've
look.
got to look half dead,
You've got to look half dead, consumptive.
like a consumptive.
You've got to look consumptive, so you could be rescued, and you can play the game. And basically, it's sort of Adela is basically saying, well, there's lots of books on this, and she shows the ways of corsetry or sort of doing up your nether regions to look
Doing up your nether regions.
Yeah, sort of readjusting
You've got all
your
the
Y
lingo.
fronts.
You've got all the lingo.
And it's just and it was really nice. And they had like moments of sort of like, oh, you got to pinch this, you got to do that, and then they had the fan, sort of how to work the fan, because it's it's like an unwritten is a rule. It's like non-verbal communication where how you hold the fan and how you act on it and how you look above it or the side of it.
A bit like OnlyFans.
yes, it's the 1890s OnlyFans. Liza was the first. She was at the forefront of that.
The one thing I was slightly curious about, and I hadn't really thought about it, is the lack of a lady's maid or lady's maid.
Yeah, we were discussing that because in Downton, which is
our closest closest point of reference.
It is really. I mean, so was that 19? It starts. When does Downton start? Was that 19? Was it? When does the Titanic sink? Was that 1908? 1912. So that's when that started. So. They had ladies' maids then.
Yeah, I'm sure there were ladies' maids in the Victorian era. I'm pretty
in the provinces
sure.
though.
But they're very rich and they've got plenty of staff. It would seem so.
But I suppose the ladies' maid would have come with the ladies because they were basically this is the house staff. So you've got the butler, which runs the house, and you've got the housekeeper that runs the kitchen and the domestics and that, and then you've got the standard one. So. Because the house was sold, the Hardacre Hall was sold because they'd left and died, and they just literally bought it. So this was the staff just running the house. Yeah. You wouldn't have a lady's maid because the lady's maid is like the PA.
So you'd employ one, surely.
But they don't know, do they? But Adela doesn't have a lady's maid. But then again, they're on their uppers, aren't they? They can only afford her.
When you think
about
houseboys, you think about. The other this of the same era, even though it's in a different continent, you've got the Gilded Age, when there's definite ladies' maid activity going on.
That's on the 1890s. That's the 1890s, isn't it? Gilded Age.
It's in the same era. So it's just interesting, and I'm just curious about it. An editorial decision, presumably, perhaps.
Well, it's probably too many staff, too many characters to play with because you're introducing all the other characters.
Because think about upstairs, downstairs. Definite ladies' maids going on there.
I've not actually seen a single episode of the original or the reboot. But I suppose
missing a treat. That's all I can say. Missing a treat.
But because I think Liza does need a ladies' maid because the opening scene is her with a GHD straighteners over a candle, sort of cremating her hair.
Yes.
And Joe mentions that was like smoked badger or something.
Absolutely. And of course, but one of the things is that you wouldn't have had the necessity to build that friendship with Adela if she did have a lady's maid, because the lady's maid would be telling her
what to do,
sorting out all of that for her. So it, as I always say, it drives the plot.
I think Adela and Liza have that they hated each other, but then they liked each other. It's a bit like Joe and Adela. Adela likes that he's a very handsome man and likes that
he's chasing her.
He's chasing her, and she does like that, but she has to conform to her mother's sort of requirements.
Yeah.
Which
there's only so much leeway that you've got. There's only so much freedom. Eventually, you will reach the end of your leash and get hauled back.
Yeah, I mean, her dad doesn't really mind one way or the other. So.
Well, he's got his own preoccupations, I think. He certainly comes across as being less
conserved with this social construct. Yeah,
it seems to be Lady Fitzherbert that is more focused on on keeping up appearances.
Her standards. So but I mean that was quite interesting. But Lady Fitzherbert just does not like the Hardacres because her plan last week, like the previous episode, backfired, and it made the Mary Hardacre sort of front and center.
Yeah. So she just wanted to use the Hardacres to present the stage upon which she would perform, and it didn't quite work like that. And so she was I think in this episode she was in a bit of a bind really, because with Mary Hardacre being adopted by the society lady, she doesn't really have much option but to
go with the flow.
Put up with her.
Yeah, so it's quite. It was really quite interesting. Now there was more information about Father Hardacre, because he was down at the docks and he's being told by someone who was on the board that what he cannot do. I don't quite get this. I know it's referenced in the previous episode, or you have to go through the board, but sorry, this is the person that's like equivalent of a Euro millionaire. And all he's done is he's not bought into a board or anything like that. He's bought a dock and bought a shipping firm. So I don't understand why he's being told he cannot do that, because he's bought this crane thing, he's given staff that, and he's been told you've got to show you've got productivity. I don't quite get that, because you're the richest person in the county, so you wouldn't have some gruff arse telling you need to show this, that and the other, because you could buy him out. You could buy half the county.
So essentially what seems to be the case here is that Sam Hardacre's bought a company that has a board of directors. So the board of directors, it would seem, have some sort of what in modern parlance should be described as a golden share. So even though it's not entirely clear what it was he bought, and did he buy all of it? Has he bought part of it? Did he just buy out the nasty bloke that he bought out, and has other shareholders? It's not clear. It's
not very clear.
But all you need to do is just suspend your disbelief and run with it. Run with it.
Yeah. So we have that. So he's having to deal with his world, which is slightly more senior. So he's having to keep the workers happy and also keeping the other people happy, which I do find that a bit peculiar, because he could have just
bought it with his own money.
He could have just bought the whole thing.
Yeah, it seems to be the case that he bought something without taking any advice from anyone, and didn't really know what it was he was buying until after the event, when Callum informed him about the peculiar constitution of this company that he's bought. That it would seem that even though he owns it, he doesn't have free rein to do what he likes,
which is what he has done. So there was a bit of confusion there. So that's probably a plot device for the final two episodes.
Think about something that drives the plot.
Possibly, yeah. So it's just like, So Lady Fitzherbert sort of comes into her house and discovers that Liza and Adela are together, and sort of friendship there, and she doesn't want anything to upset her soiree with Lord Snookface, Mr. Dull, Snookface.
You should really find out his name, actually. That would be quite useful. You keep going. I shall hop on to IMDb and find out the character name.
Right, so you're going to hop onto IMDb, but I think we probably won't see him ever again, because he's a throwaway character, and plus he's buggering off for 6 months. So this was his farewell.
Hello, goodbye.
Hello, goodbye. And so basically she said that she doesn't want Adela to be anywhere near the Hardacres.
Fraternise with the fishmongers.
Until after the soiree. And Adela takes umbrage at that, and then writes out an invitation inviting all of the Hardacres to come down and enjoy the soiree.
So I think it's Hugo.
Hugo. He does come across as a bit of a Hugo, a bit of a chinless one.
Bit of a Hugo.
And yeah, so that was pretty much where
Well, there's a bit of a punch up.
there was a bit of a punch up because so Joe's really got a hots for Adele. I was trying to write a romantic letter comparing her to the arse end of a moon or something, and Eliza sees it, reads it, and says, "Don't give her that twaddle.
Buy her something expensive.
Buy her something expensive." So he buys her the equivalent of a Ratner's brooch.
I'm sure it's very expensive. It just wasn't very nice.
It was very gaudy.
We don't know where he bought it from.
Gaudy.com. It was very popular.
Temu.
It was Temu does glamorous things. So he's bought her this gift, and when they arrive at the party, he takes her to one side and gives her this gift, and she opens it up. She's touched that he's bought a gift.
Yes, but she doesn't want to wear it.
No, he says, "Well, do you want me to pin it on?" No.
I'll wear it next to my heart.
Yes.
Or my chemise.
My chemise. And then Lady Fitzherbert spots them, so you shouldn't be out here alone. Come back in. Chaperoned. And in the meantime, Liza is trying to be Liza Doolittle and talk posh with Hugo, comparing the caviar canapé, which she doesn't really like, and she spits out. And then he calls her sort of like she's like the arse end of a horse or something.
A heifer or something like that. Or
Joe takes umbrage at his sister being. He's fine with him taking his sister down a notch or two, but will not.
Yeah. So Hugo and Adela are sort of cozying up. Joe comes in, tries to muscle in on their cozy get together. Hugo insults Liza, and that's just really the opportunity that Joe was looking for.
Yeah, and plus he wants to protect his sister, so Hugo takes up the I've fought at Cambridge, roughy tufty things, and obviously he's not fought a roughy tufty.
Well, what he will have fought would be a Queensberry Rules little boxing thing rather than a dock
worker. So, needless to say, Hugo does not come out very well.
No.
Mrs. Fitzherbert comes in and is like, you weren't even invited, and Mary Hardacre is distraught that her children have caused umbrage, and because she's just thinking this is her hook into society.
Yeah.
And she's still looking for recognition, and it's very sad.
Well, in the face of it, it's never going to come.
No.
Or at least until there's like 5 generations of Hardacres living in that house, and they've had all the rough edges rubbed off, and then we're more in the modern age where it's quite such a stigma to have made your money in commerce.
Yeah, and it reflects a little bit because we binge watched the Disney Plus Rivals with the Jilly Cooper thing, and you've got a character of Danny Dyer who's like a sort of
Freddie, isn't it? Freddie.
Yeah, he plays a character called Freddie, and he's very rough around the edges, but he is who he is, and he's unabashed who he is.
And he's also very wealthy.
I think he's sort of taken on Alan Sugar. It's like he plays a rough diamond, but he is accepted because A, he's got money, and B, people like to be around him, but his wife is an inverted snob, and I think so. The Hardacres just need to find their groove. Because people do like them. I mean,
ultimately, I think it's about stop looking to other people
for acceptance.
Just learn to accept yourself.
Yeah, and then people. I mean, because the Lord Fitzherbert, not Fitzsimmons, Lord Fitzherbert, just took them on as who they were, and it was just it was the wife that was putting all these social graces and expectations in, which then puts Mary in that sort of situation. But if if you've got money and you're polite, you're engaging, then
Why should it matter?
why does it matter?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think this will be the overriding sort of arc of this sort of series. It will be that sort of energy, which I think is just phenomenal, and I'm really enjoying how this is playing out. So while the kids run off, so they leave the Fitzherbert soiree after Hugo is sort of leaves as well, looking a little bit bloody, and sort of Daddy Hardacre is talking to Mary and saying, "Look, why are you doing this? Why?" And she's just looking for acceptance, because obviously she's come from a really negative situation.
Yeah. And it makes her motivation, having learned what we've learned about her past, it does make her motivation sort of more compelling. I think that sort of almost desperate need to be acknowledged and recognised and
seen
and considered worthy. That it's almost like they planned it. It's almost like they planned it.
Yeah. So Joe buggers off. He goes on for a walk to clear his head, because Adela's basically said because he's sort of like, let's just get married and elope. And she said, I can't. I say, you may have money, but you don't have class. Yeah. And he's really put.
He's gutted.
Yeah, like a fish, like a heron.
See what I did then?
Yeah, I see what you did. So he sort of walks off to blow off some steam and what have you. And sort of we see him walking down the docks, and Betsy
just so happens
sees him and then goes to him, and he's distraught. And she said, "Are you okay?" And then they end up within an embrace, which is very
clinch,
which is very lovely. We also have Ma. She's upset.
Yeah, so she's gone to poker.
She's gone to poker, and she's got a bit tipsy, and Mr. Ward has sort of joked about sort of cheating ways, and she said, "I've not cheated," and she's a little bit tipsy, and then she's like, "It's like, I'm only teasing," and then sort of he walks her home, and she's, "I can do this. I'm my own boss and everything." We have the butler, who's
Mr.
lovely,
Mr.
Beasley. Mr. Beasley is really, really lovely. I didn't mention it in the last episode, but there was a really touching scene with him sort of straightening the under butler's sort of tie. It was just a simple thing, because he's really quite gentle, and he rules the roost there, and you just think, wow. And I think his character is coming to the forefront, because he puts Mrs. Snooty housekeeper Dewhurst. Is it Dewhurst? Anyway, sorry. He puts her in her place. But so Mr. Ward asked him, "Say, look, don't say anything to anyone. She's not as bulletproof as people think." And he said, "See what?" And it was just that was so gentle. And we have the very last scene we see with Ma sort of opening a tin. And the flashback with Mary's flashback, we've got her hair being cut off,
and the lock lands
on the floor, while Ma's being taken off to the ladies, the women's sort of wing, and in that little tin is lock of hair. And it's just such a really
very poignant.
It is really, really poignant. So
everyone's upset really at the end of this episode, or more or less.
And I'm upset we haven't seen Harry, and that's very, very sad. Tilly has been
Tilly
the dog. We haven't seen anything of Tilly, but we have heard that Tilly
rumours.
Tilly has escaped to go and play with the Russian wolfhound from the Fitzherbert. So I think there may be some puppies sort of in episode 6. Apparently.
Okay.
So,
I can't imagine what they would look like, but hey, well, we'll find out if that happens.
Yes. Well. So we are due to have a conversation with the lovely Julie Graham, who plays Ma. So maybe we can ask her some of those questions. So that would be very, very exciting.
Yes.
So
Stay tuned.
So stay tuned. So the next segment of this will be our lovely conversation with Ma. Should we ask her to do it in the accent? Just follow through with the character development, darling. What's Tilly's favourite food? That sort of thing. So, dear listeners, so we will wrap this episode up after we have spoken to the lovely Julie Graham.
Sorry, I'm in a very I'm in this office. I had to do a thing for Sony Television this morning, so they've very kindly given me an office.
Oh, very lovely.
Lovely.
I know, so I've got an amazing view of London, if you can see it.
Oh gosh,
my
lots of
goodness.
office blocks. Marvellous.
Wow.
I know, I feel very important.
Well, you are very important.
Well, you know.
Yeah, we were saying earlier that we had £1 for every bona fide celebrity that we've had on our podcast. Then, well, we'd have £1.
Well, I love the podcast. I mean,
Oh.
okay, so I love a podcast. I'm obsessed. I'm you know, I think I'm the only actor on the planet that doesn't have their own podcast.
Why don't you have your own podcast? You've got such a lovely voice.
Know. I don't have time.
That's fair
But
enough.
anyway, but I do love listening to them. And then when I think it was one of the actors got me onto it and said, "Oh, that they're doing a podcast of the Hardacres," I was like, "Oh my God, I'm obsessed." So I listened to you guys on Friday night when I opened a bottle of wine, and then I just listened to it and I was like cackling and howling and going, "Oh my God, they're guessing. You guessed everything right. Basically, all the things that you guessed that were going to happen in the show are going to happen."
Wow.
But the show is just so fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really sort of, it's what marked in YouTube as a gritty realism, and I'm thinking, no, it's got humor, it's got gravitas. But the last episode was episode 4 that's just gone out. You were fantastic in it.
Yeah.
The whole character arc is just,
and we're beginning to see things that were sort of foreshadowed early on beginning to come to fruition, and I think that's terrific. It's almost like they know what they're doing.
I know. I mean, the writers are great. I mean, obviously there's 4 writers. They're all women, and they're in a writer's room and everything. But last night's episode was written by a writer called Liz Lake, and she's an amazing writer. So they were really lucky to get her as well. And I just that was my kind of sort of first couple of questions when I started doing the show, was that there has to be a reason why Ma and Mary have this very combative relationship, and this kind of I mean, very loving but very there's a big barrier between them, and so when I read that episode, it was just music to my ears, because I just thought, this is exactly, you can imagine that's the reason that they are with each other. It just explains everything.
Oh, it is. It's. I mean, I find the writing is very female orientated. It's very drama. I mean, the men folk don't seem to be as sort of front and center. It's a bit like Downton, where that's a matriarch sort of drama, and this has just got all of those elements, but the humor through it's just so you've got such a really good element of drama and humor, and it delivers, and characters that could just be one-dimensional are just really fleshed out, and you just feel like there's more to find. That sort of, there's a nuance to everything, really.
And that was the big draw of the scripts for me, was the humor in it, because I just think, without that, you can't, there's no point in setting something in Yorkshire around that time without, all those kind of working class communities. I mean, just kind of like plucking, like Glasgow, Yorkshire, Liverpool. I mean, I know Yorkshire's not a city in itself, but it's it has a strong identity in the way that those other places do. And I don't think you could make a show without kind of bringing that humor out.
Yeah. I mean,
because
certainly Sorry, we certainly
It's
noticed.
just a particular humor, isn't it? It's a
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
get down and dirty with
Yeah.
it, but it's
yeah.
I think because it's got the pedigree of writers that have come from like Call the Midwife and also All Creatures Great and Small, the new reboot. It has that element where you've got something really dramatic happening, but people are actually sort of seeing sort of humanity sort of shining straight through.
yeah,
And I think that's what's missing for so many TV shows. It's sort of, and I
yeah.
think with Hardacres, I love the. It starts off really well because if this was like an initial series, like from the 1980s or 70s, the first episode would have been an entire series.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I know. I mean, I was slightly worried when I read the first script because I thought, oh my God, everything happens so quickly.
Yeah.
But I think the way it was put together and I think the way it was directed, you know, I think they just wanted to kind of get on with the storytelling of it and you know, you could draw that we could have drawn actually a whole series from that first episode, but I kind of just loved the pacing of it.
It was,
And
it just all the characters are set up, and you can think, oh my gosh, these are just. It's a great loving family, and I think that sort
yeah,
of family pot boiler is great. But big question is, when's so there's no announcements been made for series 2.
I know. We're still waiting to hear. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but I would be amazed if they didn't do another one. I mean, I can't imagine why, you know, Channel 5 and all these companies would spend all this money and get these great stories together if they weren't going to back it up and make more. But apparently there's going to be an announcement at the end. At the end of December now.
Was it December? Because we spoke
Yeah.
to Alex, the producer, and he said it'd be the end of October, but it's been sold to other regions, but they're still in
It's been sold all over
negotiations.
the world, and they're just waiting to hear about America. So I think they're in negotiations with the states and everything. So I think that's the big one for everyone, you know.
So we've got some listeners from America that sort of love the like British dramas because we did a Downton series, and they're gagging for it. They really
Yes.
are. Oh,
Oh, I think the Americans would absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, Alex only said that the only issue they probably have is the accents, but I said that's nonsense because I mean, Call the Midwife, you've got
all sorts.
you've got it's Cockneys, and so All Creatures Great and Small, which has got sort of a massive Yorkshire following. That's exactly the same, and the scenery is fantastic. The scenery is great. How did you feel about it being shot in Ireland rather than Yorkshire?
Well, I mean, it's always a shame when the show's not shot somewhere authentically because you know it's it's a shame, but it's logistics, it's expense. I mean, I think Ireland give television companies a great tax break, you know, which is something I think the new Labour government are going to have to sort out and you know give more tax breaks to have things filmed over here because it's just much more expensive.
Yeah,
And I think I mean and believe it or not, you know, the Hardacres isn't shot on a massive budget and because it looks like it looks like great big budget drama, but actually it's shot on quite a modest budget, you know, for a period drama. But we were just really lucky with the crew. I mean, we had the most amazing DOP, director of photography, who was, I mean, honestly, I swear that man has got wands and not hands. The way he made it look was incredible, you know, for kind of on not a huge budget. And then we had an amazing costume designer, Alison. She was incredible. She sourced all these beautiful costumes, and then you know, hair and makeup. In Ireland, they do it a little bit differently. In the UK, hair and makeup are just one department, whereas in Ireland and Canada and America, the hair and makeup are completely separate departments.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah. So we had this amazing hair designer called Orla Carroll, who is so difficult to get because she's working all the time. But I think Alex and her have got a very good relationship, the producer Alex. So they've worked together quite a lot. So she managed to persuade Orla to come and do our show. And she's, you know, the hairstyles were beautiful. And then we had an amazing makeup team as well. So, you know, and an amazing production designer who I'd worked with before, who just turned this quite kind of bland looking Cabertilly House, it's called, in Dublin. And it was an old stately home that was bought by the Irish Council years and years ago, and they to preserve its history. And now it's just used for film sets. But you know, when you see it sort of stripped down to its bare bones, I mean, it's pretty grotty. It's freezing in there as well. But our production designer Derek just waved his magic with it and made it look absolutely sumptuous and gorgeous. And so we filmed everything on location again, which is quite unusual because a lot of that stuff is done in a studio, but we did it all in location. So I mean, I think Yorkshire and County, not County Cork, where we're filming, in the Dublin area, where we filmed it. I mean, they're very similar terrains. I think we got away with it.
Well, it does look very lush. I mean, I think so the whole drama is centered on the family, so it's centered within rather than the external sort of rolling hills, that sort of thing. And I think it everyone is so delicious. The characters are just.
What was it like playing a character like Ma? You know, someone as unpredictable and so on. That must be a real joy.
Yeah, I mean, I snapped their hand off when they sent it to me. I'd worked with Alex Jones, the producer, before, and I absolutely love her. And she's got great taste. And so when she offered me the part, I said, "Who else has been offered this?" Like, no, just you. And I was like, right, I want to do it. I don't care. I didn't even speak to my agent. I just said, I'm doing it. So I rang my agent and I said, I've just been offered this job and I'm doing it. They were like, okay, it's fine. Because they just don't come along that often, those great rollicking. I mean, she's enormous fun to play. And, she just doesn't give a shit about anything. And
but she does, though. That's the thing.
I mean, in terms of, how people perceive her.
Yeah.
And how she kind of presents herself to the world. She just really doesn't give a rat's ass about what anybody thinks. The only thing that's important to her are her family. She would die for her family. And she doesn't really care about anything else. But she's a free spirit, and she's very much a woman out of her time. I mean, before her time, because she was a single parent. She brought up as we saw last night, she had to go to the house and everything. But there's quite a lot of kind of the rebel about Ma, and she's got a murky past. She's been a criminal and obviously a gin runner.
Haven't we all?
I mean, and God knows what else, nefarious things that she's got up to in her past. But she was just she's just great fun to play. I want to play
the romance with the gamekeeper.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is. Oh, sorry, the meet cute. It was just. Oh my God! It was just like electric. Yeah. Oh, it's like, so sort of Daddy Hardacre and Mummy Hardacre are lovely, but your chemistry between the two of you, it's just electric. I could actually just watch your romance arc between the two of you.
Well, it does go places, but that's all I can say.
Will it be a spin-off series?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, what's funny about it, I think, is from Victor's point of view, I think it is very much a romance for him. I think from Ma's point of view, it's a bit of
distraction,
bit of nookie. No spoilers. But I think she is not up for having a romance. I think she's up for something, but I think she doesn't want to get kind of tied down. And I think probably the prospect of that is terrifying for her. And so she's very, very, very resistant to it. But he kind of, he works his magic to a certain extent. But no, it's the next two episodes you kind of see what happens. But it's a lovely sidebar in the story. And also, again, you don't really see many middle-aged romances on screen.
No. That's what's so refreshing.
Exactly.
And I think it's very it's relatable, even though it's set sort of 130 odd years ago. All the things are sort of modern crisis points of trying to do
Mm.
best for your
Yeah.
family, keep a family together, and also keep up with the
Yeah,
expectations.
it's very very
Yeah.
relatable.
Yeah, why should the youngsters get all the fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the youngsters seem to be having a dire time of it on this show.
Yeah, that's true.
They're all trying to fit in and not having a very good time of it, really.
I think, I think what was really beautiful about last night's episode, or episode 4, was the fact that you saw these two young women, obviously come, Liza and Adela, and they come from completely different backgrounds.
Yeah.
But they're constrained by the same, sexist and almost medieval, thoughts about where women should be in society and what their place is. And they're constrained by the same things. And it's what, gives them a common bond in a way.
Yes.
Because I say that.
And I thought the writing around that was so beautiful, really delicate and kind of and very feminist.
The whole show is very it's a matriarchal and very feminist, and I think that is it's really hammering into the target audience for this type of period drama, because it has all the family sort of draws that you'd want to go to, and it's so relatable. Where you see some of the old period dramas and you think they're a little bit laborious and it's all about staging and it's man focused, but this is female focused, and but it's got the same problems. Everyone can relate to everything in it, and I'm enjoying the upstairs downstairs, for the staff aspect, but they don't seem to have had much of that interaction. So it's but hopefully they could develop that in future series, because I think there's so much to go there.
Yeah, lots of possibilities, isn't there?
I think they definitely want to develop that, and that, I love the there's a wonderful story arc with Dryden coming up. I think you hinted at it in the very good. But there is a wonderful little story arc coming up with her. I think the lovely thing about the Hardacres is that everyone gets their moment in the sun. And I think people are allowed to shine, and all the characters are given a little kind of, they're given their airspace, and it's definitely something that I think they will, when we do series 2, then they will develop that, because I think all those storylines coming together are just really lovely. And I mean, even a character like Mary Hardacre, who she's the heart and soul, as far as I'm concerned, of the whole show, and and her relationship with Sam, obviously. But it's interesting to kind of look at someone like her. I mean, really, in this day and age, I mean, Mary Hardacre she'd be running the country. She'd be kind of, she'd be a kind of top businesswoman, kind of, having a family and running a business and being, but she's so desperate to fit in that she's actually constraining herself. To a certain extent as well. And
I think with this
dilemma within her, trying to kind of fight both worlds.
I say with episode 4, it was so interesting because it seems like a counterbalance with regards from the very first episode. It was just like she was now trying to fit in, and now we see why she's looking to fit in. And I think that's but the two, your character and Mary's, stood outside the workhouse, was just such a phenomenal scene.
And then with a scene like that, for us, the penny starts to drop, and like, okay, so that explains so much of the things we'd be going, why is she doing that? Why is she doing that? Then suddenly,
the writing's so good because everything's got layers upon layers upon layers, and you're peeling them away. And I just wish they'd announced the series 2 with a Christmas special.
Well, Shannon loves you guys because she plays Liza. Shannon Lavelle is obsessed with Christmas. I mean, we were filming the Hardacres this time last year. We just started, and it wasn't even Halloween, and Shannon was planning Christmas decorations for the makeup truck, and she'd bought Christmas decorations for her flat in Dublin. And I mean, I've never met anyone more obsessed with Christmas. I'm a bit of a Grinch when it comes to Christmas, so you know, she was like really trying to rally me and going, come on. She was going, I can just imagine a Christmas special. Come on, Jill. You just got to imagine a Christmas special. Come on. And that's all she's interested in. I don't even think she'd care if there was another series made. I think she just wants to do the Hardacre Christmas special.
Well, we'll put it out to the universe.
Crying out for it, right?
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, ultimately, the good thing is, if it does get recommissioned in December, hopefully you'll have you'll be filming in the summer. So therefore,
Yeah.
it'll be, because it does look rather cold.
Yeah, it is freezing. Yeah.
Are you playing croquet in December?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
definitely. Speaking of croquet, so we've seen you play croquet. We've seen you gut fish. Are these all things that were on your CV, or are they new skills that you've?
No, these are new skills that I've acquired. Yeah, gutting fish, playing croquet, riding a horse and cart. Yeah. It's been very informative. How to wear a corset without, you know.
So what would you say was your top takeaway from actually working on this set for series 1 of Hardacres? What would you say would be the highlights?
Well, I mean, you know, we as a family, as a cast, and they really did by the end of the show feel like my family. I absolutely adored every single one of them, and not only the sort of Hardacre family, but the other actors, a lot of whom are Irish actors who are based in Dublin, who were just the most wonderful actors to work with. I mean, Owen, who plays Lord Fitzherbert, is one of the most hilarious people you ever meet. So hanging out with him on set was a joy. Kathy Belton, who plays Lady Fitzherbert, I mean, it's really funny because she's one of the loveliest people on the planet. I mean, Kathy hasn't got a bad bone in her body, and that's what makes her such a brilliant actress, because she's so cold and evil as Lady Fitzherbert. And I used to absolutely love playing scenes opposite her, because I would really wind her up, you know, as Ma and Lady Fitzherbert. So I was always kind of like, when I was sitting next to her at the recital, I was kicking her and pinching her and knocking her and, you know, like offering her a drink, and she's trying not to laugh. But I have to say, just the joy of ensemble playing on that show was just the best experience for me as an actor, and also just as a human being. It was just, I loved every second of it. And I think it really translates on the screen.
It comes through. Everyone seems... It feels so real, and I mean, so the chemistry, I know the set design is, everything comes across really well, but I think the scripts just they just flow effortlessly. There's nothing clunky about anything about it. So what are you doing next? What's your next project?
Well, I've just finished a big job in Liverpool. So it's called The City Is Ours, and it's a big crime drama.
Ooh.
Set in Liverpool. It's about a kind of the demise of a crime family. So I can say Godfather meets Succession meets Brookside.
Is it a contemporary set, or is it a period set, or?
No, it's contemporary. It's contemporary, and it's the scripts are fantastic. It's written by a writer called Stephen Butchard, who's written amazing shows. And yeah, wonderful cast, and it's a really exciting project actually, but I just want to do more Hardacres, really. That's
we want you
to we are the number one fan. We even set up the Facebook fan group.
Oh great. Well, I'm not on Facebook really, but I will check it out for sure. And our plans for so my reckoning is that the reason that Mary is a little bit more genteel and is very different from her is because I think that Mary's father, I'm just putting it out here, was an aristocrat that Ma shagged in a back alley one night.
Oh.
And maybe robbed. And as a result, Mary was born. That's all I'm saying. I'm just putting it out there for series 2.
Right. So,
oh my god! Oh my god! That sounds so delicious. Yeah.
And also in series 2, like you said, I think it was a really good thing you pointed out that Harry is one of the most interesting characters. Is that there's a big thing coming up for him in series 2. I mean, the writers are in the writers' room at the moment.
Oh, brilliant!
So they are planning series 2 as it's, as if it's going ahead. But they told me that a really exciting, lovely storyline for Harry, which I can't obviously divulge. But when we stop recording, I'll tell you.
Oh, so with Harry, is he coming back in because he just seems to be carted off? Yeah, he just seems to be carted off in the last episode. We've not seen him since.
Yeah, he comes back.
The EastEnders black cab.
I know. I was going to say.
Handsome cab.
No, but so if they're in there writing it, then there must be much confidence on there.
Surely.
Channel 5's social media is awash with the Hardacres, so they're sharing screenshots and all that sort of stuff, and they did some backstage interviews and everything, which looked just brilliant. Everyone's so happy and smiley, and it's a really good, heartwarming show. And it's just,
I think it is. There's not a lot of shows you can sit down and watch with your family, So I think that's part of its appeal. It's got a kind of old-fashioned feel to it, but it's got lovely kind of almost contemporary characters and contemporary subjects. So I think it's definitely got legs for sure.
So the books go up to 1950s.
Okay, I'll probably be dead by then. Unless I'm in a bath chair.
But it does seem to really work sort of in that sort of era and that universe. So with the 1890s, because you've got the prequel to Downton, which is the Golden Age, which is done the 1890s in America. So because I know they've taken inspiration from the books and they've introduced sort of more female orientated characters in that orbit. But it'd be so super interesting to see if there's sort of an America, if it gets picked up in America. I'm sure America would want to dip into that because it's all the investments and everything, because the Hardacres got their money from a sort of a South African gold mine, so they could be investing in the railroads in America. So there could be a collab with the Golden Age
crossover. Wow.
I would love to see Ma in the Golden Age.
Me too. Don't know if they could cope with her.
But no, I think everyone has done such a really good job. But your character is I'm fanboying here, but I think your character just stands up so well. And
thank you so much.
It just glows on the screen. You're just like, I want more Ma. But what's Ma's surname?
Well, this has been a discussion. So we don't know. We don't even know what our first name is, although we had a poll around the cast to see what they thought Ma's first name was. And I think we settled on something, but again, I won't be able to tell you, but I can tell you off recording.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. But yeah, they don't know. Nobody knows what Ma's second name is. Wow. I mean, she regards herself as a Hardacre because she regards herself as part of that family.
Yeah,
but she's not, a blood relative in that family. So,
but I think sort of the Hardacres, that's just such a great family unit, and I think Ma is the figurehead,
the linchpin.
Yeah. And then Liza's obviously her protege as well.
Yes.
Definitely. How many teapots died in the episode?
It was rubber, that teapot.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. That's how brilliant the art department is. We had about 5 rubber teapots.
Is that
Yeah.
flinging the rubber teapots at each other?
Yeah, the budget wouldn't stretch to real teapots.
Oh, but thank you ever so much for,
Yes,
for
thank
agreeing to
you.
come on to our little podcast. I mean, we were so
Aw.
so super super happy that you sort of so your producer reached out and said that you'd listened to it and sort of so it was like, oh my god, this is so fantastic. So
Oh, thank you so much for
Yeah,
asking me. I absolutely love it. I love it. I think I love your enthusiasm for the show, but also I love the kind of guesses about what's going to happen and everything. And it's so lovely to listen to, honestly.
oh,
thank you.
well, thank you for being the inspiration for doing the podcast.
Happy to.
Marvelous. Well, so dear listeners, that was our delicious guest, Julie Graham.
Thank you so
very
much.
much. So that
So-
was the very, very lovely Julie Graham.
Wow. Isn't she
no-
fab?
Oh, she's amazing.
Isn't she fab?
Totally fanboying.
Yeah.
After we stopped recording the interview, we did have a little cutie quiet chat with her. And although there hasn't been any announcements for Series 2, the writers are in the writers' room, and there are some quite delicious, explosive storylines that are being discussed.
We could obviously tell you, but then I'm afraid we'd have to kill you.
Yes. But we cannot wait. So it's all very, very lovely. We have got 2 more episodes to go of this series of The Hardacres, and we have been told that they are going to be really quite wonderful and delicious. So, dear listeners, I hope you enjoy this extra long episode with us fanboying all over Julie Graham. So we need to go and have a sort of lie down in a dark room.
Yes, with a flannel over
With,
your
with,
eyes.
with a moist flannel,
A moist
over our foreheads. So please do get in contact with us. And if you are also a fanboy or a fangirl of The Hardacres, we would love to hear from you. The social media fan group is on Facebook. Just Google, just put into the Hardacres fans, and it will come up, and lots of people are getting really excited.
And
for the
obviously,
show.
I will, as usual, put a link to it in
On
the
the
show notes.
And if you wish to follow, comment, or anything like that, we are on all social media platforms at Antique Dust. So this is Jonathan signing off.
And this is Rob saying goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.